Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for allowing me to talk a bit about the opportunity costs of the Iraq War. And we can't ignore or dismiss the tremendous cost to the Iraqi people or to U.S. soldiers. But today I would like to focus on another type of cost, the cost that all Americans must pay because of our country's continued pursuit of this war. Every dollar spent on the Iraq War is a dollar we cannot spend addressing other priorities, whether abroad or at home. Economists call this an opportunity cost. Congress has so far spent nearly $320 billion on this war. But all of these dollars are dollars that could have been directed toward meeting other needs and investing in our future. In fact, that amount of money could have done all of the following, and I came up with a list just to drive the point home about how much money we're talking about. We could have provided health care coverage for all uninsured children, that's more than 8 million children in the U.S., for as long as the Iraq War has lasted. And we could have provided 4-year scholarships to a public university for all of this year's graduating seniors. And we could have built 500,000 affordable housing units. And we could have fully funded the amount the Coast Guard estimated is needed for port security. And we could have tripled the energy conservation budget in the U.S. Department of Energy. And we would still have enough money left over to reduce this year's budget deficit by about a third, around a third. After 3.5 years of the Iraq War, much has happened in the U.S. that speaks to our elected officials' priorities, or some of our elected officials' priorities. We could talk about these things, the increasing number and rate, percentage of people uninsured, the 12% poverty rate, a third of which are children, stagnating incomes, the job recovery being mostly low-wage, primarily low-wage jobs, a historic number of bankruptcies, growing inequality, and so on. But I want to give a more specific example that really speaks to the divestment in our infrastructure and in our families, and that's what happened, the events surrounding Hurricane Katrina. The hurricane exposed the poverty that exists in this nation of wealth, but the hurricane also exposed what happens when we neglect our infrastructure. Representatives from Louisiana had consistently requested that the Southeast Louisiana Flood Control Project be fully funded. The budget had been continually cut since 2002. In response to another request presented to the administration the year before the hurricane, the Deputy Director of the Office of Management and Budget responded in a memo that the President's priorities included war and pro-growth economic policies. By default, the money was not available for fully funding flood control. We now know what penny pinching on flood control, on levee construction, what all of this has wrought. And as the members know, Congress has appropriated more than $100 billion in response to what happened with Hurricanes Katrina and Rita. But we must wonder if the damage, the cost, the loss of life, all could have been mitigated if we had been paying attention to the many priorities at home. But the Iraq War impacted Hurricane Katrina in another way that I don't think is talked about very much. 30% of Army troops at the time of Hurricane Katrina, 30% of Army troops in Iraq were National Guard troops who would normally play a role in response and recovery in the event of a natural disaster. Aside from the troops being deployed, their equipment was deployed, and the Army ordered that their equipment be left behind. So by the fall of 2005, there were 64,000 pieces of equipment left in Iraq by the Army National Guard. So just to make the point that we are less prepared for the natural disasters, accidental disasters that happen at home. Now, Congress is moving towards allocating another probably around $50 billion for the Iraq War. Each year we stay will be another 75 to 100 billion. Interest payments will make up over 100 billion. healthcare disability payments for the wounded soldiers and so on. I think 3.5 years later, the American public is increasingly recognizing that the costs have been too high. And so I admire our elected officials for showing some leadership in this area to talk about these issues.
Thank you very much.